mine. Sorry.
Oh, hello. Hello, flat earth researchers, debaters and debunkers. Sorry to
Who
keep
came
waiting.
out?
Hi?
Who came out?
Who came out? Me, I came out. Yeah.
Decoration.
Oh, okay, thank you. You've got to be careful of that because we don't know. We might get burnt by the candles. Thank you very much, anyway.
Decorations.
Oh, hi. Hi, John. And John Tor as well. And Seabass. Now they're in my tummy. Inrem, hi. Oh, by the way, Imran, I have been watching the last couple of your videos, but I haven't commented on them. So just to let you know that I am subscribed and follow your musings. Earth curvature or level will be measured soon. Oh, yes. Okay. Alpha, beta. Hello. Yes, you are the first. All right. Hello, Hack. Stashman. Hello there. All right. Been in to catch up for a while, really. Just been very hectic around here, and I hope that you're having a good Sunday and you're having a positive weekend. But yeah, lots to talk about, really, and I suppose, you know, addressing. Yeah. Oh, that's cute. Thank you. So, it's a very active household tonight, by the way. We've got all the kids at home. So we live in a very small place. I'm not very wealthy in terms of money. Yeah, I work hard. So there's my wife looking after the kids. But I consider myself very wealthy to be able to be with the family a lot of the time. So, wealthy in spirit, that's right, Imran, thanks. Yeah. What's up? Ah. I'll get a copyright strike if you play anything. Yeah. What are you going to play? Play me back. Was that a fart sound?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I was meant to get another one, not that one.
Oh. Okay. Fart sounds are keeping the kids amused. Oh. Yes, I got the whiteboard prepared. I've got a clock which I've adapted for this little session. The world needs me more than I need the world in them. Yeah. Yeah, doing this by candlelight tonight. Otherwise, there just isn't enough light on my little porch lights. So I just thought it'd be nice to be out, do it outside. It's a nice pleasant evening. Moon's out, stars are out. Yeah. Where to start though, because you know, for all of you watching, this is probably, you know, this is all about a personal journey to seeking truth about who we are, where we are, what we're doing here. So a lot of it comes down to, well, there's these steps in kind of realization. So that's why I wanted to kind of talk about concept versus reality, the physical reality, and the way we can measure it, calculate things and make predictions and so on. and then that, how that relates to the body, the mind, and the spirit, and how it's important, or part of the learning process, I suppose, is discerning the difference, separating the body, mind, and spirit. And of course, they all cooperate or operate as one, but often the spirit or consciousness, although it's there, I suppose you could talk about it as the spark of life. It's hardly recognized. Yeah. But maybe that's a bit further down the line. Yeah. Tony Dixon, hello. What's that? Inran, you ordered a builder's level due to arrive on the 15th. Ah, okay. Yeah, the hour buffer establishes a free water level. Yeah. This is it, isn't it? The usual thing. Any arguments will refer to concepts about gravity, and nothing that can actually be measured. I think we were talking about the other day. You can electricity, for example. You can create electricity. You can measure
Okay, that's enough.
The kids having a great time. Yeah, that's the thing with a small house. You get to see and hear everything that goes on. So, yeah. Where were we? Okay. Yeah, gravity, for example. Gravity. Obviously, gravity is a concept which is required, or okay, you can't. How can we say? The reality is that you can drop something. Yes, you can drop a dense object in the air, and it will fall to the ground at a certain rate of acceleration, and that's predictable, and that's measurable. So, of course, then this being able to measure the rate of acceleration is considered science. And if you hypothesize that the Earth's mass is pulling an object towards its core, and it will do so because it has a certain mass at a certain rate of acceleration, that's your prediction, that's your hypothesis. And then you can say, hey, look, I can measure it and I can prove my hypothesis. My hypothesis is that something will fall at a certain rate of acceleration. I can prove it by measuring the time it takes to travel a certain distance. And so you have this illusion of a scientific fact. The only fact that's been confirmed and can be confirmed is that a dense mass will fall through the less dense medium of air until it hits the ground. And it doesn't tell you what the driving force is or what the cause of that is. And even Newton admitted that in his first paper on gravitation. This is, of course, after he studied optics, which is I find ironic that he might well have worked out a lot of the geometry of optics and then applied that to the geometry of a spherical planetary Earth. Again, all conceptual, and the idea of mass attracting mass, this was just concept. It was something he was able to kind of calculate and create a model for, but it didn't mean that the mass of the Earth was or the dimensions of the mass of the Earth were creating this effect. So, as I was saying, unlike electricity, which we can make electricity. We know how to do that, and we can make it of a certain energy or power, and you can measure that in amps, for example. So that even if you're not powering something with the electricity that's passing through an ampemeter, you can measure it. You can measure that force of amps pushing the electricity through. again, that's easily described and modelled, and it's, in terms with electricity. I need to use that later.
Why?
Yeah, to wipe the board. Yeah. Can I keep it? Thanks. Yeah.
What is this candle melted?
Yeah, it's all gone now. It's all melted down.
Did you use it? These birthday candles?
Hello, Rue.
Who's Rue?
Okay, in Rem, yes, your last video explains in detail my method of measurement. Yeah, so go ahead and check out in Rem's latest videos there. What's that? In Rem? Flat Earth was centre, but they changed it to sun centre. Yeah. What's that, Abby?
Holding a candle.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? The centre is conceptual, isn't it, really? And it can be modelled in a myriad of ways. You can put things at the centre. Again, it's been said many times, but the heliocentric model is an illustration of the Gregorian solar calendar. This concept puts the sun at the centre, but it doesn't mean that the sun is a big ball of mass 93 million miles away from the Earth. It's necessary to calculate it in that way for the model, but it's just a concept to go with a calendar, which is also a concept, isn't it? A calendar and timekeeping is a concept. So, maybe it's kind of good time to bring up this. So I just took this old clock. It had 12, 1 to 12 on it. What's that in, Rem? Okay, they added Earth rotation, right. And that did not work, so they added tilt, yeah. Exactly, yeah, all these things are descriptions, aren't they? The tilt, no one's ever seen the Earth tilting or has done any kind of actual measurement to prove that. Yes, you can measure where the sun is in the sky, and of course there are many possible explanations for that, and that's good to talk about in terms of this. The change in the seasons is just basically that you can consider it as the distance that the sun is from that particular location, or maybe the sun is at a different height above. We could use this as, I know this, don't think that I'm assuming the Earth is a disk floating in space, but we'll just use this as an example where you've got a level surface, and the sun is going above it, and it could be changing height to create the difference in seasons, or it could be doing it covers the different tropics, doesn't it? It goes into the Tropic of Capricorn and Cancer. I honestly can't remember, to be honest, off the top of my head, but that can be described and modelled in a way where you've got the sun doing concentric circles that get larger and larger over the year, or they can spiral up at the same time. So you could have this corkscrew effect of the sun doing this above the Earth to create the seasons. The Earth doesn't have to tilt. Yeah. Again, it's funny to use this because that's not what I'm trying to represent. But of course, this is it. Circles are really, really handy in terms of describing things, aren't they? Because of the geometry. So yeah, this. I thought originally when I did this, just changing it to a 24-hour clock, and that you can just move manually, just the one arm. I was originally thinking of how you can represent equatorial mount, and again, this is one of these ridiculous arguments that you get about equatorial mounts rotating on a single axis to follow a star or the sun or whatever, and so there's no denying that these things we see in the sky are doing circles, and of course it's really easy to just okay, it's assumed that if you're on a globe, you're watching the sun or the moon or the stars go overhead, and then they would be apparently going under the Earth. Yeah. Now this might be something that kind of a concept that people then kind of try to bring into a flat Earth model, and they'll think, oh, hang on, how can we have things going under the Earth? What's under the Earth and all that stuff? You know, this is this kind of mental block or a kind of hurdle that you have to overcome when you're, you know, we've been taught about a particular model. You know, to let go of that concept and all the little aspects of that is quite challenging. That's part of the challenge. It's part of the, you know, recognizing what's been going on in the mind to solidify these concepts and for them to appear to be our reality. Yeah. So sorry, I'm not sure if wow, I'm missing a load of chat there. Wow, okay. Alpha, I'm sorry, I've just gone down. I'm sorry, and I'm missing. Okay, yeah, okay. Secular science has many unproven theories. Alpha Beta says, yeah, a lot of theories, you know, and predictions that can be made. So, you know, consider this is some kind of mechanism on an equatorial mount or a telescope, and essentially, although it's going to be doing something like, you know, okay, basically what we've got is an arm that can point. So if I kind of do, like, for example, over that way is the east, and the sun will rise, or the moon, or all the other celestial objects will rise. And, you know, this could be on some kind of automatic equatorial mount, and you set it and it will follow the sun or the moon or whatever as it goes overhead. And so it's gone over here, and it's gone off to the west. Okay, so it's gone out of sight for me. So it's traveled across the horizon and it's gone out of sight. Meanwhile, this mechanism, which is literally just a timing mechanism, carries on moving at the same pace, yeah, on your equatorial mount, yeah, doing its circle, and boom, voila, it will come back around at the right time to see your object come up from the horizon again. But, you know, as far as the object, hi YouTube, as far as the object appearing and then disappearing at the horizon, this is just the result, and can be easily explained and demonstrated with you know, things going across our field of view and going far away until they can't be seen, or they appear to merge with the horizon. So as far as, you know, this is a very crude example, but all I'm trying to illustrate here is that you can tilt this and you can have it pointing in a direction but essentially what you've got is a circle. Yeah. So you just, and it's on a timer. So all you're doing is just, once the celestial object has gone out of view, this thing is not pointing at it anymore, but it's just following the same rate of time until it comes up again. Yeah. So yeah, and that's the thing with all this. It's like this is all conceptual, isn't it? Time is conceptual, and I just saw your Antex video. My Antex video put you off your junk food. Sorry about that. Yeah, get some real protein down you. Get some insects down you. Hello, Mark. What's that? Kamsari? Okay, sorry. I put the camera a bit farther away. So yeah, you know, this is just concept, isn't it? So yeah, we can have it going around in 12 hours. or we can have it going around in 24 hours. Yeah, and the one, it's geometry, 360 degrees, can easily be divided up into. So here we've got basically segments that go 2, 4, 6, and you know, you could just illustrate. Oh, that's just finally broken now. Woo, yeah. Gravity pulling the hand down. Yeah, but it's conceptual, right? You know, and it kind of matches what we observe in reality. As I said, you know, it would appear to be pointing to the star once it's gone beyond the horizon, and you can assume that the star has carried on this circular journey, or apparent circular journey. Yeah, because what's predictable is the time that it will take for that to come around again. Yeah. So, you know, you get this argument about 15 degrees per hour. Well, you know, that's all that is something going around, you know, at a rate that will give you 360 degrees, yeah, in 24 hours. But as we know with the seasons, it doesn't mean, you know, the days aren't equally divided up into 12 hours of sunlight and nighttime. It's all going to depend on where the sun is, yeah? Alpha Beta, how old do you think the Earth is? I believe it's a few thousand, like the Bible says. No idea, Alpha. It's difficult to know, isn't it? I mean, what is incredible is how quickly things will mineralize and turn back into the Earth. I mean, probably can't. I mean, we've got a tree over there which is dropping leaves all the time, and you know, it's just turned into soil and earth over a period of a few years, and you know, calcification and petrification and all that thing can happen very quickly, can't it? But I'd say maybe our recent history, you could maybe count in thousands of years, but this is the thing, when we try to talk about start and stop points, we are again trying to conceptualize something that we can never prove. And the only reason we try to conceptualize a start and an end is because that's our physical reality. Things kind of are born, come into existence, and then they go. So everything's always finite, isn't it? But you know, really, especially if you think in terms of the way the Buddha taught, for example, or explained, is that, you know, that's just eternity. It's not something that we have the power to conceptualize, really, and so, you know, we're already lost when we're trying to comprehend infinity or an endless existence. But you know, this is what it comes to when you're talking about the spirit, the separation of body, mind, and spirit. So, you know, just as I've tried to kind of maybe not very clearly show, but you know, there is a distinct difference between a mathematical model or an equation, for example, F equals ma, and how that is a concept that does work in reality, you know, when you're talking objects dropping, and so gives you something to measure or to base your calculations off, but it doesn't prove the cause and effect, and it certainly doesn't prove how any of this began in the first place or why it's even here. So you know, we have a physical reality which is very predictable in many ways, and we can explain that, and we can make calculations and predictions using mathematical models, fine, but you know, when it comes to things like gravity or the, you know, you need gravity as a concept because you're trying to apply this concept of doing something which is physically impossible, sticking to the outside of a spherical Earth, and we know that just doesn't happen. Now, you know, you can just look at reality as well to to know that the globe concept and the concept of gravity that goes with the globe doesn't match reality because, well, water flows. Water will flow down an incline to a so-called lower elevation. But in the globe concept, when you're somewhere on the Earth, even if you say there's no up or down in space, in the place that you assume the globe Earth to be, you're still assuming that in the distance beyond the horizon, then the surface goes down from your elevation, so it does go to a lower elevation. But reality demonstrates to us that water will flow to a lower elevation. So this in itself doesn't fit with the concept of a globe with water stuck to it. That wouldn't. You'd have to have water not flowing down those curves. Again, it's understood that there is no, south doesn't mean you're going down. This kind of thing. It's another argument that comes up, but it's simply taking how you explain reality and how you explain observations and the faith that you might have that the physics of water changes just beyond the horizon that you can see, and will be going down a curve, and a ship will be going down a curve, but that water isn't flowing. That's just, it doesn't fit with reality. So I heard Dr. Kaufman. A lot of you probably know Dr. Kaufman, who's been at the forefront of this terrain theory, as opposed to the conventional germ theory. And he has a wonderful, he's really wonderfully summed that up, the difference between germ theory and terrain theory when it comes to our bodies and diseases and what have you. He says, when we test the model and we see that the model doesn't fit with reality, then we let go of that model. We throw out the model. We discard the false model. We see that it doesn't actually fit with the hypothesis or the reality that we are seeing or observing. So we let go of that model, and then we are free. Then we are free to explore a multitude of other possibilities. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically it. You have a model, whether it's in medical science or the so-called science attached to the Earth. And of course, that's changed with Newton and then Einstein, and now that's even changing. It's being questioned because of the kind of physics, the exotic physics that is being carried out these days. So those old models are having to be put aside, but very reluctantly so by the scientists. They don't like to let go of their models because this is where we come into this the ego clinging on to concepts or going against the grain. So again, just to repeat Dr. Kaufman's, the way he put it was a lot more succinctly than I have just now, but you have a model that doesn't work, doesn't fit with reality, you discard the model, and then you are free to explore many other possibilities. It doesn't mean that you suddenly have an alternative model to go, well, here you are. You don't have to come up with an alternative explanation, which of course, I don't know yet. You have to, is often demanded of the flat earther. Well, if you're refuting that, you must have an alternative explanation. It's like, no, this is the whole point. The whole point of this is to understand that, the model of a spinning globe Earth, heliocentrism, is just conceptual because it's based on a calendar. The fundamental discovery that should have been made in the very first place before any adventures off into other thought experiments is a physical measure of curvature. That should have been the observation that was made. Somebody somewhere says, oh my goodness, there's curvature there, there's water not flowing down a curve, or I can see that the horizon here is where I say the horizon is turning into curvature. I can then see that side on. There's some verification of this assumption, but no, that never happened. There was never a fundamental discovery or measurement of curvature. It's all just thought experiments and concepts based on, as I said, the concept of time, measuring time and trying to put it into a model and trying to illustrate it. Yeah. So this is the thing, that the model, the globe Earth or heliocentric model, is not based on a discovery of curvature. It's not based on a measurement of spin. It's not based, everything that's come later has been a thought experiment, as you were saying in REM. At first they tried this, and then they had to add the spin, and then they had to have orbit, to try and, to conceptualize their way out of, or explaining how these impossible things are actually somehow possible. Yeah. But it's all based on a false premise. So you have to make up all these explanations. Yeah, explanations mean nothing. And as I was saying, a formula such as F equals ma is just a description. Now, you call the rate, you assume that there's a force, and of course you can apply that in the real world, and you can have this force pushing against this one, and this can be you can explain what's happening when forces are used to push objects and things. Fine. And of course you can use it to then say, well, this rate of acceleration is caused by a force. Well, okay, you can assume that if you want for the purposes of mathematics, or describing, and it works. There's no denying that, but it doesn't prove what's caused. The only cause of something falling is you putting it in the air in the first place. If you place it in water, it might float, or it might sink more slowly. Yeah. And again, when it comes to talking about, for example, the eggs in salt water, the egg is just suspended there in salt water because they're a similar density, or even humans. You can do this yourself. You can float in water, right? Because you're a very similar density to the water. Now, of course, the mathematical way to explain that is that there is this pulling force that's pulling you down at a rate of acceleration 9.8 meters per second squared, and it's pulling you down, but then the buoyant force of water is pushing you back up, and mathematically these two opposing forces cancel each other out and you arrive at zero. But that's the thing, isn't it? You don't, when you've got two forces pushing against each other, let's say these are pushing in opposite directions against each other, then there is a physical force. Now they might not be moving because the forces cancel each other out, but there's a force there to push these things together. But that's not happening when you're floating in water, or the egg in salt water just hovering there is not being, it's not having twice the force on it, down and up, is it? That's not happening, and it doesn't happen to you when you float in water. So, it's just trying to explain that this is a concept. F equals ma is a concept, and it works as a way to describe these things. But that concept of F equals ma requires you to start with a mass, a dense mass in a less dense medium. So the metric system was introduced, and you've got kilograms. So okay, a kilogram is 1,000 grams, and all this, and it's going to fall at almost pretty much 10 meters per second squared, rounded off 9.8. So yeah, it all works. You can just build your model on that and make your predictions. Yeah? It doesn't make it true. It doesn't make the cause and effect fact. So, hang on, right, I've got a lot of chats there. Why not? Okay, let me just go back through them. We got Chilster. Hello, Chilster. Wow, so many. Okay, Chilster. Oops, sorry if I'm missing. Coffee House Theology. Hello. It's evening here. Where are you, Coffee House Theology? In REM, that's what you think. All cardinal directions are horrid. Yes, absolutely, in REM. Yes, again, all these little things, isn't it, that you test out. This is it. When you come to test the model, you as you're referring to Dr. Kaufman again, you test it, which no one ever really does. A globe defender doesn't test the model. They just well, they go along with these predictions and say, see, there you go, that proves it's curvature, it proves we're spinning. Yeah. Just we're all sinners. Maybe it's a prison. Just yeah, a good point. I mean, it's certainly you can certainly kind of make all sorts of have all sorts of thought experiments, if you like, about what this reality is. So that's a kind of good segue actually, because we're talking about the body, mind, spirit, and I think this. So the understanding that there are concepts and there's a physical reality, and we can describe our physical reality with concepts, but that doesn't necessarily make them true. If we can get to that stage, what we've done is we've started to observe the mind operating in the body. So there's this awareness that now comes out. So now we've got this third thing, the awareness, not only of our surroundings, but of how our mind and our senses, or how our mind is interpreting what our senses experience. And just a quick thing while I remember this, I remember part of my journey in a way was I read that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and the one thing I really remember that stood out for me is that there's often this cross communication, misunderstanding of communication between men and women, and it's often down to the language that is used by either party or the way it's interpreted. So for example, the woman in a relationship might be kind of complaining or kind of muttering away as she's doing some cleaning up or something like that, verbalizing. Now the male will typically take that as some kind of a complaint directed at him personally, because there is this feeling that one must do something about the situation. And then, of course, there's this feeling of helplessness, and this kind of brings up this feeling of kind of anger and resentment, and you feel that you're being accused. So this is, all of this comes about from taking it personally when you hear your partner, if you're a male and you hear your female partner complain about something, she might be just generally venting, just like we do. Oh shit, yeah. But the male feels personally responsible, and so then of course they feel agitated and inadequate if they cannot immediately solve the situation, or they'll then respond. For example, here's one. A woman might say, "I'm not trying to be sexist here. This is just what's being pointed out in the book, and it's very true." The woman's might say, "You never take me out. Or you never do this. You never do the washing up." And the man says, "Well, I took you out last Tuesday, and I did the washing up 2 nights ago." Yeah. And there's this, of course, it's just the way that what's been said has been interpreted. What's been said on the spur of the moment isn't necessarily to be taken literally. When the accusation is made that you never do this, it's like, no, you yeah. So I'm pointing this out because this is something that I read, and then it's true. We basically, the male and the female mind see and interpret things in different ways. So we often, arguments can come about because of this misunderstanding. And so, it does take, having after reading that and understanding that and seeing that, it's like, okay, there's progress being made then, because then there's a realization that you don't have to take complaints personally. that's just an example of part. Just for me personally, that was one of those things where one of those points where you're becoming more aware of what the mind does and how the mind interprets, and how the ego especially interprets the things that we see here around us. Yeah, I'll just try and get this candle in so I've got enough light. So this is something that I'm talking about 20 years ago. Part of that journey, part of that exploration as to who we are, what we are. Yeah, so that's what all of this is about. You know, we're talking about, people argue about models and concepts, and that's the thing. You realize why they believe certain things, but to explain to someone that they are defending a belief is quite challenging. It's not something you can really do. You just have to people have to be ready at their own time. Yeah. And just before I move forward, let's just have a look at the chats there. Okay, quoting some Bible stuff there. It's all right. Yeah, Tony Dixon. I like. Yeah, it is all intelligent design, but by who or what, I don't know. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. You know, we can. There's a limit. We have part of this is accepting the limit of our understanding or our knowledge. Yeah, and again, discerning between real knowledge and wisdom and belief, a really, really important aspect of all this, isn't it? It's funny. Sorry, lots of things coming up as I think about this. But Alpha Beta, do you think humans landed on the moon? No, I don't think they did. No. So yeah, Chilster Ducks. You were talking about a prison, and oh man, it's so you know. Now, you often hear the argument from atheists that if God was real, or if God existed, he wouldn't allow, for example, children to suffer. Okay? Because, well, the thing is, that's taking this concept that God is an all benevolent, loving being, or that, you know, assuming that he would never let these things happen, never let the suffering happen. So your point about a prison is, it's not, you know, it's like, you don't have to necessarily consider it as a prison, but it is a place, it's a physical place where we certainly have experiences and we can learn things and, you know, learn what it is to be evil. We can learn about cruelty, we can learn about kindness. Yeah, we can experience all these things, and who's to say whether it's supposed to be a good or a bad experience? Who's to say whether, you know, for what reason someone should be born into a certain situation? This reminds me of an interesting story that was related to me the other day. It was by an older, she's in her 60s, she's a Thai masseuse. She was giving me a massage and saying that, you know, when she was younger, she saw this family start a slaughterhouse, and to start this slaughterhouse they brought in some cows from somewhere else. Yeah, so, you know, they made money. They were somewhat successful financially, but they all suffered very debilitating, long illnesses and strife and disabilities. And the one man in particular she remembers seeing, he ended up kind of, being immobile and in a chair and drooling like this, and she said it just reminded her of the cattle that get slaughtered. So for her, seeing this and making that connection as a karmic thing, she became vegetarian for the rest of her life. Now, those people in that situation might not have ever made that connection themselves. They might have never thought that, hey, I'm killing animals and I'm creating some bad karma here. But for an outside observer, you can make that connection. Now, you could argue that, of course, till the cows come home, for want of a better phrase, because what can you actually prove? What can you actually prove in terms of these things that happen? But this is the thing, when you get to that point of, well, there's never an actual point, but this progress we make as we become more and more aware of the body, or the mind, and the body, and awareness itself. So you've got these three things, the mind, body, spirit, or awareness, the Trinity, if you like. So for the most part, we're born into this physical existence, and the physical world around us gives us, and of course our whatever culture, we quickly adopt certain concepts about life, the way things are, the way things are supposed to be, whether that's being in a system that taxes you and educates you and all that stuff. These are all concepts that we are very familiar with, but and they very much become reality. But that's the thing. We're living a physical reality, of course, no denying that. We are physical beings. No need to talk about simulations and things like that. It's a very physical thing, and things like pain are very real. But then, most of our life is really these two things. It's conceptual. There's the physical existence. We're waking, sleeping, eating, shitting, screwing, all that stuff. Yeah. But most of what our existence is conceptual. It's all going on in our heads. And whether it, and this, the ego, whether it's material wealth that we're seeking, a higher position, fame, fortune, all this stuff, satisfaction. A great deal of the time we'll be wanting to get an answer, or we'll have a vision of some place we want to be, and when we get there we'll be comfortable. This will be it. I'll have accomplished what I want to do. And this is all just concepts. A lot of the time these are just ideas and beliefs and things that we think we should do because certain things have influenced us to think that way. So again, having that awareness is important, and it's constant vigilance. But that's this thing. It's funny. Think about it. Think about how most of us live our daily life. We live in a conceptual world most of the time, whether we're having a conversation, we're talking to people about things, sharing ideas, grievances, or whatever it is, dealing with certain authority figures, having to do things, jump through hoops. It's all conceptual. It's usually totally unnecessary. But then, of course, there are times when we really are living in the now, and we're not living in a conceptual thing, and those are kinds of times of, when an emergency situation, for example, or a situation that's more kind of life and death, fight or flight, then you're operating on a different level. You're not necessarily operating on a mind level. You're operating on an awareness level. You're more focused and tuned into to being aware of your situation right now. So that's the thing. Most of the time, we're not there. We're not in that place. We're not in a place of awareness. We are in a place of concepts in this body. Yeah. They're very separate, and the more we kind of practice observing and being aware, the more we see the separation, and the more we can kind of lean towards or lead a life that's more connected with the spirit. And that's what's so funny is that we're leading lives which are totally conceptual, yet, and that's reality. That really feels like reality to us. Yeah, when you're offended by something, when you're angry, when whatever, you're happy, or you're sad, or some tragic event. Yeah, you're still alive. But you're suffering from being in this particular concept so you have a certain concept about the situation that you're in. Your body's in the situation maybe, but usually it's just your mind. It's just the mind that's in a certain situation, trapped in a certain concept, rather than simply, I had a train of thought that was going somewhere then, but maybe I made my point. Yeah. Let's have a look at the chat. Awake Souls. I'm making a video about your last video with the daytime full moon. Oh, okay, cool. Just Oh, thank you. Oh, hello, No One's Flower. Hi, nice to see you here. No One's Flower. Force a descriptor of motion in the form of a comparative ratio. How can you say a description doesn't exist? Okay. Was that addressing someone else? In REM, there are too many observable instances that mandate it needs to push versus where observation mandate for it to pull. Okay, the whole kind of push and pull argument, I see. Awake Souls, do you think our physical reality is made up of atoms? Have you ever seen an atom? It's just a concept. Good times. Hello, Zach. Richard Brown. What's that saying with V equals IR? Okay. Oh, Zach. Oh, stop it. YouTube. Hi. Just, okay. In REM, force is not a description of motion. Good one, yeah. Okay. No One's Flower. Some men I know put their women in jail for saying those trivial things. Hello, what's that? Matu253? Hi from Estonia. Nice one. Hello there. Yeah, okay. Mark, the woman who usually means any detention. Okay, No One's Flower. No One's Flower. Force is a description. It is a ratio describing what is understood to be a mass or a matter and the motion. Good times, things only accelerating one vector. Oh man, yeah, the whole gravity arguments here, they really get you going, don't they? Oh, one man, he's detector. Hello, I am well, thank you. Recovering from a horrible lurgy, Matu. Yes, Matu, nice point. Ego won't allow to take this knowledge to be true. Is that Raoul or Paul? I can't see. Coombs? Yum, okay. No One's Flower. Like even rotary motion, the edge of a wheel Isn't the acceleration of the circle expressed in the same terms as straight motion? Uh, oh, okay. You kind of like you're asking. Okay, you kind of converse amongst yourself. No one's found good times. V. Thomas, hello. Was that vegan passports, vegan mandates? Oh, right. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm going to kind of scroll down a bit quicker. If an abattoir had glass walls, everyone would be a vegetarian. Paul McCartney. Yeah, I think so. You know, it's funny. It's one of those things that you just, it's like alcohol, isn't it? Kind of just not. Don't feel the urge for it. I never really did too much, but it's like, yeah. I think it just happens. It's just a consequence of being, that awareness, the awareness of other sentient beings, and being, again, you think of those kind of, it's funny, isn't it? Because most people wouldn't want an abattoir in their backyard, would they? There'd be lots of protests about that, but they still go down the supermarket and buy their packet of pork. Yeah. And hey, I wait my kids. I don't push my kids to be vegetarian, but one can maybe lead by example, eh? And I'm not. Again, it's like, when it comes to terms of karma and things like that. Who knows? Who knows if the spirit is born into a pig that is raised to be slaughtered, and who knows if that's some kind of karmic thing. And that's not to say that we, us humans, are these all-powerful instruments of karma. Quite far from it. We are, in that sense, we can be, victims. We can suffer. We can suffer from karma, but really, the karma is really your doing, isn't it? It's the action, and again, that's a scientific thing that you can describe. E equals mc squared could even be interpreted as a way to describe karma. You do something, you put some energy out there, and it will create waves. Some kind of energy will come back. Yeah. The magical thing about this is that you can never really predict exactly how it will come back, and that's what's fascinating about what we're seeing unfolding now. I think it's quite positive. As usual, the people that have tried to instigate the control measures and sell their drugs will never admit publicly what they've actually tried to do, or the mistakes that were made by, they'll just, but some very positive change happening because people are waking up, and I think it's fascinating to watch. Just going through a chat. Right, one man and a detector. Yeah, not your words, Paul McCartney's. Yeah, I eat chicken, eggs, and fish. This is it. It's kind of. Can be a dilemma. If you're offered food. In some ways, it would be rude to refuse it just because I'm vegetarian, I don't eat that. It's like, well, what you could at least do is appreciate that the animal has been sacrificed in order to feed you, and on another level, that's very how can I say? There's a kind of, do you see what I'm saying? There's in some ways we kind of accept it. Again, we're not trying to judge. We don't try to judge what has taken place, and for that animal to arrive on a plate to feed us. Yeah, sometimes. But that is the way the world works, right? I mean, we see that going on. We see animals eating other animals. It happens. Yeah, but unfortunately, us humans have kind of gone way off from what would be a kind of normal or natural balance of that. Yeah. What's this? The diffraction of light. Only a person in a position of absolute liberalism, and Antichrist belief system will try to tell you what to eat and tell you what is not good and good to eat. God made all things good. Well, you'd be well advised not to eat a pufferfish or a certain type of. Do you know those horseshoe crabs? There's a difference. The one that lives in the sea is okay, but there's one that lives in kind of what do they call that kind of fresh water that's slightly saline. They live in the kind of mangrove forests anyway around here on the coastlines. Those are poisonous, yeah. So they're okay to eat one from the sea, but if you eat one from these inward coastal regions, then you could die from it. And I saw a story recently where a woman died after eating one. Inrem says the force is the amount of resistance applied to create movement. Oh, we're having a good old argument in there. I'm not going to kind of. Let me go all the way down here. No, I don't suppose Canadian truckers will go to the Super Bowl. Hey, who's that? BCB. The only way to get to the source, which is ground, is to become positive. Higher positivity equals more draw to source. Was that in Ren? I must be a nobody. Nobody came to a zero. Nobody came to rescue me when I was arrested for non-compliance of mask mandate. Lawsuits. Okay. Scrolling down. Okay. Ow! Boom me. Hello again. Have you had much thought about how air works? Where does the wind come from? Is that directed at me or just kind of the chat as well? I mean, I think, that it's kind of fairly well explained, isn't it? In terms of pressure differences, heat changes, the sun and the sun moving around. You've got the changes in heat that will create changes in pressure and away it goes. So, yeah, but it is fascinating, isn't it? Wind. Yeah, and I love the patterns that wind creates on water, these kind of the ripples it creates, and so you can see that actually wind ends up being like a frequency. It is like waves, isn't it? Yeah, fascinating stuff. It's sometimes the way, for example, these water spouts, they happen off the coast of Phuket sometimes. I know a boat in the past, when I was working at a newspaper, I covered a story about a boat getting caught in one of these water spouts. And the way these things, come down, and I mean, they do seem like intelligent beings. It's bizarre. Oh, Chilster. All fines in the UK have been labelled unlawful. Fines, yeah, non-payable. Nice one. Yes, it's good to see. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to... what's that one? Awake Souls says, the gradient of pressure is proof that we are not in a dome. A tire has equal pressure everywhere in the container. Yeah. Well, but if you stood something up, if you had an oil drum, for example, or and you can make that as tall as you like, you'll get the difference. You'll get the pressure gradient, right? Maybe some of you guys that have already kind of looked into that. So again, there's no denying the pressure gradient exists. It doesn't, you can do that in a fish tank. You don't need a lid necessarily, but you get that pressure. You can have that pressure gradient. You get layers of density. But man, yeah, who knows what's going on with the things up there? It's all of these. This is the thing. It's ultimately we go round and round in circles arguing about these things, but it's no different to the globe or arguing about a belief that something falls towards the Earth because of the mass and dimensions of the Earth. It's just a concept. You can't prove anything. Yeah, you can make certain analogies, but we always end up conceptualizing these things, based on our limited understanding or limited to the physics. The physics of what goes on here might not have any relationship to the physics of the stars and the planets, the movements of those things, whatever's going on up there. I mean, it's understandable. We can make the assumption that we're a planet because we see other planets, we see other moons, we see moons going around other planets. Absolutely, totally understood that you can assume that, but that's kind of part of the illusion. And this is it when it goes back to, I think, was it Chilster, your question about this being a prison? There's no denying that we are born into this physical existence in which we experience illusions. Reality is very illusionary, and again, it comes back to these concepts. So everything that's going on in our minds is all an illusion, all conceptual, and of course that's just that's impressed upon us. It's we are molded in that way, and so the challenge in waking up or building a greater awareness is to see that. Is to gradually detach from those concepts or understand that they are concepts. And because a lot of the time we end up feeling guilty about things. We end up feeling we've done something wrong, past thing. This can haunt us forever, And sometimes when you talk about getting to a point where you're constantly happy because you're living in the now kind of thing. What am I trying to say? Yes, there are still things that will haunt you that you might have done in the past. But a lot of the time it is conceptual. And okay, if you've done something that is wrong, morally wrong, and your spirit, your soul tells you that it's wrong, you acted in that way at that time, and you didn't have the awareness that you do now. It's not necessarily your fault. It's part of this experience. It's part of the learning process. Again, part of seeing and really observing and understanding that separation between body, mind, and spirit, or awareness. Yeah, I think that's you know, because we have no answers about, you know, what it's really all about, do we? So we've gone from physics to the kind of more kind of things, but okay, and we're going back to this. One man and his detector. Think of air as an elevator. Think of air as air in an elevator. When the elevator moves up, the air in the elevator will fall and contact. And what's that? So was that contact to the ground up? So yeah, you kind of will create some pressure, won't you? The air that was still is suddenly being pushed up, so it will, in some senses, resist. Yeah. Boom me. Is the Earth like a fish tank where we need some fresh air brought in to replace the used air? The air must somehow fully circulate as layers of dust seem to settle in closed rooms. Interesting point, but how many layers of dust are we on? Yeah. I mean, this so that, you know, that question about, do you think the Earth is 1,000 years old? No, this is eternally here. So the you know, yes, physical layers of dust. I mean, this could be, you know, miles and miles down. Could be ancient civilizations that were once here. Who knows? But we're only ever going to scratch the surface. Of course, that's part of the trick, isn't it? They've got us looking up. Okay, let's, you know, there's only the stars and the planets and the moon, and well, they're not even going to the moon, but Mars to discover. Now we've discovered all the Earth. There's nowhere else to go. So just look up instead. Direct your attention upwards. You know. But that's another interesting point. You know, the water and everything like that. Yeah, it's got to be. You're right, Al. It's got to be, because, you know, otherwise it stagnates, right? You've got to have a fresh supply. It's got to be coming in. Where's that coming from? Where's the water from? We don't know any of this. We have no idea at all. You know, the Earth, or the Earth that we know it, could be just kind of on. It could be an island, or, you know, floating on water, or who knows? Yeah, you know, maybe it gets super saline, and it's buoyant enough to support, you know, rock. But again, what's underneath that? Where does it end? Nobody knows. We don't know. We just don't know. Even if you want to think that you're on a spinning ball in space, you can't know anything beyond, you know, what we experience here on Earth. Yeah. So in a way, it is a prison, but that doesn't, you know, a camp. So who was it? Was it Brian Staveley? I had a nice chat with him once on Iron Realm Media, and he referred to the Earth as dojo Earth, like teacher. And yeah. So, you know, if you're an animal that's born into a slaughterhouse, and you're consumed within 6 months of your life, is that karma? Is that a lesson for you? Is that, you know, a level of the game that you have to go through? Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. So, you know, that kind of goes. Is there right or wrong? You know, should we all be, you know, strict vegans? No, probably not. You know, a lot of the time, you know, you just have to eat what's available, and sometimes food presents itself to you, and that's where it is. You know, so. Yes, Black's Law. Yes, in Oh, B. Thomas, people are inspired by your conviction. Is that to me or someone else? Either way, nice comment, thank you. Who's the Bachilster saying that's a bot? Okay. Yeah, good point, no one's flower. That's weird. How does the air become fresh again if we are enclosed? Yeah. And Al says that's what puzzles me. I think the air is a gas form of water and acts. Okay. Yeah, trees in Rem says, yeah, good point. I mean, yeah, this is it. You know, that's the other thing about nature, isn't it? I mean, it's all there. It's all, yes, intelligently designed, without a doubt. So much superior intelligence than we could ever muster, because it's all been thought out. You know, it's everything gets recycled. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. Yeah. And so, yeah, again, the food chain is there. And life and death is what makes this place go, and birth, decay, all these things. It's just part of it. It's the way it has to be, right? There has to be renewal, but you know, how and where that comes from, you know, and I like the idea that it comes from, you know, when astronomers or so and so they talk about stars, and okay, if they can actually detect certain things in stars, certain metals, certain elements from spectrum, whatever you spectroscopy or whatever the name is for examining the qualities of light, then maybe our lives are intrinsically linked to the stars. Maybe astrology and astronomy are one and the same science. Again, this comes down to things that we can, you know, there's the physical existence that we have, and then there's this conceptual existence that we have. But it could well be governed by the stars, and on a kind of spiritual and physical basis. You know, maybe the stars are pushing out these elements, and they are helping the earth grow, or they are building humans and oceans and things like that. Maybe they are, but that would mean they're very, very close. They're not millions of miles away. So, yeah, good times. Plants recycle the air for animals, and animals for plants. The cycle within the system. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you lived in one of those, what do they call them, vivariums, or one of those gardens that you can create in a bottle and seal it up, I mean, would the air be... I get the impression the air wouldn't necessarily feel fresh, but it seems to work. Yes, Chilster, yes, I like that. Yeah, an ozone generator smells the same outside in the morning. Yes, that, and it's like, or an after a storm smell. Yeah. Good times for all says, look at the insides of your lung, or our lung compared to a tree. Yeah, and this is it, isn't it? You know, when you have these realizations, when you know, the intelligent design, I'm sure a lot of scientists and biologists and stuff, they cannot deny that there is intelligent design, and so, you know, they admit the existence of God. But of course, God is a conceptual thing. We think of a man in a white beard for whatever reason, you know, this physical human person. It's like, no, it's totally not that. Yes. Oh, that's very good. Yeah. Again, you know, we're often, our minds are muddled by concepts and labels. They really are. When really, I suppose, just before I go back to the chat, one thing I was trying to kind of get to with this thing, the mind, body, spirit separation, the awareness. You know, you then become aware of the ego. You become aware of how the ego governs the mind and the ego, and how they influence each other, or how the mind is governed by the ego, I suppose. And of course, it's having that awareness and being more and more vigilant diminishes the influence that the ego is able to have on the mind, and so the mind becomes clearer, the mind becomes freer. Again, we're talking about those concepts. You're stuck to a globe. You're going to argue for your globe. You're arguing for a concept, and it's an egotistical thing. And to argue for an alternative concept is also kind of a trap in the ego thing. So it's kind of there's more of an acceptance that many models are possible. So sorry, I'm digressing again, but the point was to, as you go through and you get more and more awareness, then the ego is influencing the mind less and less and less. So your actions, your physical presence on the earth, in this world, it changes, the people you interact with, the things that come along into your life, they change. And so eventually you're kind of, you're not worrying about the bills that you've got to pay or the what's coming up in the future, because you know that actually somehow the universe will work in a way that will bring some kind of divine intervention. And it really does. It really just does work out. I mean, it doesn't mean you sit on your laurels doing nothing or just waiting for things to happen. No. But there's each of our lives has a path, or many paths that it could follow. And it will very much depend on the awareness that we can have as to how our mind is working mostly on a conceptual basis. V. Thomas, no borders, no nations, just vegan passports. Mighty Atom, hello. One man in this detector, water doesn't break down, everything else seems to. Yeah. I've got to think about that one for a bit. Should we enter the light when we die or try and resist? Yeah, of course, that's interesting, isn't it? Because you're talking about this ability to make a conscious decision. And I think that is a good question, and I think again it comes to, if you've progressed in life to that point where you're detached from the concepts, your ego is not kind of influencing your mind so much, or you have a lot of awareness of how it is, then you don't have to think. This is the thing: the ego and the mind, or thoughts are basically the mind, right? So we have all these thoughts, and they're often based on ego, and so it goes back to what we think someone said to us or about us, or what we how we feel, the emotional response that we have, which turns into a physical thing: anger, increased heart rate, adrenaline, whatever, all these things, that are manifest physically. Hang on. What was the? So should we enter this, answering that question? Should we enter the light when we die? So it's more a case of when you're living in a more kind of like a path that's dictated by awareness, then thoughts, you don't have to think about it. That's the thing. You're not having to think about it. You're not having to plan. You're not having to make contingencies in case this or that happens. You don't have to do that. I think what's happening in Canada is also a good example of that, because people are spontaneously coming together. They're linking arms, so they can't be individually picked off and arrested. Things like that, or they're coming up with very creative, inventive ways of just bucking bucking a tyranny. Yeah. And it's fantastic because, and this is not necessarily pre-planned, apart from being peaceful, apart from planning not to react in the way that the provocation is designed to do. So the police come along and they provoke. They, with their machines and their guns and their riot gear and stuff, and it's very provocative. And just their presence could provoke a reaction. So there has to be that awareness, there has to be that mindfulness of not reacting. And I think that's, as long as that mindfulness is there, then you come to use, you're tapping into the knowledge of, or the wisdom that consciousness has. Then you're tapping into eternal wisdom that will always win, that will always see you right. Yeah, when you're tapping into that. So when you've let go of the concepts, when you're not being governed by the ego, when it's really not influencing your mind, and then you're not thinking. This is it, isn't it? To be free of thought. Once you're free, once you're free of thought, which is just concepts, then you really are free to. You don't have to think about whether you follow the light or not. It's just going to naturally happen in the way it's supposed to. It will work out. Answer your question, Al? And Inram, you said it, yeah. Only you will know when the time comes, yes. Good times. Gas, back to the gas thing. Gas turns to liquid, then solid, then further it gets from source. A dome could be a natural formation. Think of bubble on the bottom of a hot pot. Yeah, that's kind of, the firmament could be liquid gases, all sorts. Yeah, you could end up with a dome, as you say, like a bubble. Boom meat is strange that killing animals is not nice, yet grilled meat appeals to our senses. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because I think there is a conundrum there, because that is a form of suffering, isn't it? And so if you want to, I think it's a phase that you can go through. It's a learning process. You can become aware of the addiction. This smells good, this makes me want to eat it, but we still have a choice. Do I really need it? Does it do me good to have it? Again, if you're in the situation where you're starving to death, then maybe it's okay to have the meat, because if you were walking through the forest and you were enlightened and you were on your last legs and a tiger was there, you would accept that it was your time to be eaten by the tiger. Yeah, your state of mind, if you have gotten to that, if you have progressed to that point where you would accept your fate. You would accept that you're going to be the tiger's meal and it's your turn to be the food. Yeah. In fact, that's a story that I have I've told it before, but there's an amulet, a Buddhist amulet with a silver chain that I found buried in the sand on the beach. Ending up at this beach was just it was a weird turn of events that ended up in that particular spot. But the kids wanted to go swimming, and as they were swimming in the sea, I looked down and I was just, it's just on the surf where the water's just very shallow, and I saw this just tiny piece of metal sticking up, and I went down and grabbed it, and it turned out to be this silver chain with the Buddha amulet on it. So this particular, Buddha amulets are made to represent a particular monk. that was maybe became well known for his teachings, and maybe only a certain number would be made, and so they can become very valuable. So yeah, the story of this particular monk that I found this amulet of was this, like a story like this. He'd been walking in the forest as monks do. They go on there, they take their thing and they just go, they just walk, and end up, wherever. So usually this is how in the mornings the monks go out, and they, the lay people will provide them with food in return for a blessing. So the monk always gets fed, and it's understood that the monk isn't supposed to work. His work is on spiritual development. So that's very much part of the culture and the society. So monks are supported by the lay people. But anyway, the story of this particular monk that I have the amulet of, he was in the forest and he was lost in the forest, didn't know where he was, deep forest in Thailand, and he was very, very hungry, he was very tired, and he was on his last legs really, and then he saw some wolves, and the story, he basically at that point accepted that his fate would be to be eaten by the wolves. He just, okay, if it's my time to be eaten, this is it, I'm the wolf's meal. But it turns out that the wolves actually led him to civilization, or pointed him the way out of the forest. And so it was a whole turn of events there. So that's the story there that goes with that. So, but I suppose the point would be is that there's acceptance. You get to that point of acceptance. So yes, you might want to become a strict vegetarian for reasons, or a vegan. You don't want to cause harm to animals. You don't want to be responsible, and you feel and you resonate with the karmic consequences of constantly eating meat, or being responsible for the slaughter of other sentient beings. Now, there's going to be a lot of suffering that goes with that. You're going to be suffering with these concepts of right and wrong. And again, you can become, you can be overzealous about impressing your veganism on other people, rather than, as I was saying before, sometimes accepting, sure, making choices that are good, but sometimes you can also accept without suffering any guilt that the food is there at a certain time for you, and it turns out to be meat, and it might be just what you need at that time. There's no need to get all bent out of shape about it. You can't help it. If it's a situation that you can't help, you don't have, and if your reaction would be you've got to think about whether your reaction would change the situation. Someone offers you food, it's got meat, you're a vegetarian, but okay, you accept it graciously, and you join them, you eat, and you celebrate that, rather than getting your knickers in a twist about your beliefs and your concepts about what's right or wrong. Mighty atom. Excuse my ignorance, but the 4 elements give us everything we experience: earth, water, fire, and air, plasma, electricity. What else is going on there? Bubble analogy makes sense. Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, you were replying to Good Times. Craters on the moon could be burst bubbles. Yes. Right. Sorry. A lot going on in chat there. Blessings from London. Okay. V. Thomas, they overlook that the spectroscopes are dealing with light coming through the atmosphere. So, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Like no one's flower. Fire seems close to air, but also seems like, yeah, I mean, what's going on with the flame? You know, what is that? What is this thing here? This flame here? It's totally bizarre, isn't it? What's that? Oh, two little fish. Hello. In old astrology, fire and air are the masculine and earth, water, the feminine. Air and fire work together better as do in earth. Okay. Yeah. Zach, the four elements had different meanings for the ancients. Fire, water, air, and earth represent fusion, fission, magnetic, and electrostatic. Four force. Let me read that again. The four elements had different meanings to the ancients. Fire, water, air, and earth represent fusion, fission, magnetic, and electrostatic. The four forces of physics. Oh, wow. There you go. A whole new way of conceptualizing it, but maybe closer to the physical reality than the concept of gravity. Yeah, they call that a force. Doesn't exist. Senses working overtime. Okay. Oh, okay. You're talking about people that you can or can't see in chat. Not sure. I haven't done anything. So Boomy then asks, if we enter the light, do we return to another existence on Earth or progress to something else? Interesting question again, isn't it? You know, again, it's all down to concepts. You know, one of my the Super One Green that I've done some videos about before. You know, she's gone down the kind of the flat Earth rabbit hole, but then, you know, she still kind of jives with the ideas that there are aliens or other sentient beings in other worlds, other universes, other dimensions. So, you know, who knows? Who knows? Is this place where everything happens, or is it a vast expanse, or are there other worlds? Again, it's not something that we can really prove, is it? And I suppose there must be a reason that we can't really remember, or we don't really know. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just scrolling down a bit more. Okay. Okay, thank you for your compliments. I'm not sure at what stage you were replying to that. Okay. Two little fish. Oh, well, when the natural painkillers kick in after the first few bites, you might even enjoy being eaten. What an experience. I see. Who knows? Yeah. Senses working overtime says, if these monks were truly enlightened, why do they follow world leaders? Well, do they? I don't know what monks you're talking about in particular, but yes, of course, you know. No, the idea is that they don't get politically involved. They're always there as the. That's it. The monk also understands that, you know, the layperson has their thing to do. There's no demand that everyone becomes a monk. It's just everyone has their place. You know, a phrase I have, it's just stuck with me once when I spoke to a monk, was, you can't stop progress. Just can't. It's going to happen. People are going to do things. Things are going to progress. The physical world, you know, I'm sure there's a lot, you know, I'm always amazed when I go back to the UK and how much things have progressed and compared to here. Yeah, things have become automated and more sophisticated, and people take so many things for granted. and you can't stop that. But things are always going to happen that are going to wake us up to this what we're talking about, the difference between body, mind, spirit. No One's Flower, you're asking if there are any good monasteries. Are you in the UK, No One's Flower? Laura, I think you are, aren't you? Check out the Thai, just look up Thai temple, King's Bromley. It's called Wat Mahathat. I love it. I love that place. It's so, yeah. Mighty Atom, I did look into the use of plasma in industry today. Very interesting when you look at the science. Yeah, plasma is an amazing thing. You want a plasma cutter to play with. Okay. Wow, it's been an hour and 40 already. It's fantastic to see some of the ideas you're sharing and painting around there. And I kind of think I've said everything I need to say. Yeah. And if it's resonated with you, then cool. Yeah. But, all right. Thank you, Zach. Nice one. Yeah. So yeah, let's leave it at that. And thank you very much for coming on. Hope you're having a great weekend yourself. And this is, Monday is going to be a good day. And I'll say good night from here in Phuket. All right. So thank you very much, and I'll catch up soon. Yeah. Take care.